Hi, I just wanted to come on here for my birthday, and it's my anniversary of being raped as a kid as well, and where the public just allows it and promotes it and sits there and pretends they're not all male supremacists. So I got in trouble today. I got in trouble today. No, one of the system on Instagram thought I was saying these words towards somebody, and I was actually explaining hate speech. It misread it. And I was like, oh my God, did I just lose my account over me actually explaining that? But I didn't. It was just the post itself. It actually has done that a couple times. And it's so odd because I could say those same words. I've said them before, like explaining the same stuff, and it doesn't do anything. And then for some reason, the string here, I guess, is saying that and then saying, what did I say? I actually screenshotted it because I was like, oh, that's insane. I'm going to fight it. And then I just didn't. I was just like, let it be because I'll just repost what I was trying to say, which I did. Yeah, I love it. I just find it to be so odd that it's like, I'm me as a woman who had to hear these words like my entire childhood and at school and everything else, and then I'm the one targeted, not the guys, you know what I mean? Like it's just the thing about it. But I wanted to kind of explain my point and talk about a story that actually made the news because it is a stem off of that. And it's also a stem off of the last story that I did because it's at the same time. And so, like, there's a lot to say. That's why I say I have a lot to post. So there was a lot underneath some other additional information, such as okay, so like no member raped me. Like there was no, to my knowledge, I say to my knowledge because there was a few things where, I was knocked out, but I'm pretty sure that those guys were not gang members, but we didn't ask for cards, you know what I mean? Like it's that kind of thing. But generally, no, that didn't happen. So out of all these multiple crimes, there was no gang member. And it's not to say that they don't rape people, because I'm sure they do, but when you're talking about being in a situation where they're around and none, and it's all these other white guys, right? I said that was kind of speaking more loud and clear that the issue itself isn't because, oh, those guys are gang members, because like I said, I didn't see any other ones doing that. If there were, I mean, I didn't see it. That's all I have to say about it. Because then I would say something more about the thing looking for the kids, right? Because that's the focus on that thing, not the fact that, oh, they're like a bunch of gang members. It was like, my philosophy in life is like, if you're not bothering me, like, why am I going to go bother you? Unless you're doing something harmful to somebody else, right? So that's kind of the thing. And if I knew that they were probably, yeah, I'm getting all these happy birthday things. It was like, if even if I knew they were running, let's say I knew they were running a drug ring, if it's something that's not, having anything to me, then I'm most likely not going to jump into that. You know what I mean? I'm just saying it. It's like, they'll get, probably caught one day. It's kind of like that. But that wasn't the thing about it. The thing about it was the kid. And so, and then trying to get on me, right? But government here thought that that was no big deal. And so what does that mean when your own government is sitting there blaming you and then also ignoring that somebody did that? It is promoting that conduct, right? So they create their own monsters. That was my main point. And I was just like, yeah, I go, Christian create their own problem, their own monsters. And it was so odd because the other night I was looking at something and I was trying to find some additional stuff, and this Ricky Schroeder thing came up, and I was like, holy crap, that guy, what is he going on about? Like, it kind of starts off okay, it's like, yeah, there's all this corruption, and he starts going blackmail. And I'm like, are you talking about black men, or are you talking about real black men? What are you talking about? And then he starts going into this military, and I'm just like, and then at the end of it, he's like, yeah, with the CIA, some bullshit. And I'm like, how did your brain go there? Like, you're kind of onto something for about a second, like maybe when you're talking about all this corrupt stuff, right? Because, yeah, they are corrupt. But then it goes there, and it's like, oh, you just can't look at yourself, like, oh, what those problems are. That's what it is. Because nobody wants to sit there and go, oh, the problems are like my own belief system, and like, I can't tackle it. So I'm gonna blame some weird external thing that has nothing to do with nothing. That's what they're doing. And it's annoying. And so we're explaining it right here. So, if you teach little boys that they could do all this bullshit and then you don't get them busted for it, they turn to sociopath. That's really the thing about it. That's literally the definition. That's like being well, in addition, you could be abused doing it, but you're being abused by being neglected, right? So when they neglect them and they go off, then they turn into that. That becomes part of their makeup, right? So then they become criminal because there's nothing really there to give them any guidelines to do anything, right? So they could watch crimes, they could do crimes, they could do all these things, right? Then so what is government doing when, little girls go in and go, this guy raped me, and they're like, well, whatever, it's just bad sex. You know what I mean? Like, they're like literally, number one, being criminal by doing that. But two, they are promoting for the man to do that, right? Because the guy's not getting in trouble, right? That's the neglect part of that. So they create these monsters. And then they start running around calling it sin and Satan and all this stuff, and I'm like, no, you created your own monster. And then you get situations where people turn criminal and start killing people. Like that's all part of that whole thing. You can't abuse a group of people and then expect it to come out okay. It just doesn't. That's why we were seeing those gang members out there too, because their life was not good. They had, God only knows what happened over there. But a lot of the racism stuff caused a lot of those violent home things, and coming up without a lot of stuff. There's a whole lot of things in that, but we're not going to get into totally that. But that was through, like, the Christians were main part of that. Like, who is bringing them over here to begin with? Like, when you go back into the start of the country, right? So, no, it's all self-caused. They create their own monsters. Now, this monster right here was created by society, and I was like, oh, how funny, because during the time of the other story, we had about 100 of these guys, and when they're asking me all these questions, like, who did what, did he, no, the way that they asked me was, what did he, they go, he, like a singular, like one guy. And I'm like, I don't know who you're asking me about, because there's a million guys in this. And they were clueless. Like, and then they started being mean to me because I couldn't answer the question, because it's like a multiple question for me. Is all, did he do this? So I'm sitting there going, okay, which one? Well, this one did, that one didn't, this one did, this one did, this one did, you know what I mean? And they were not equipped to deal with that. And, like, they're idiots. No, they're like literal idiots, because they were being mean to me on top of it when they were asking me all these questions. And I was like, and then they got spiteful and then made me tell like this huge, long, horrific story, which they don't give an F about. And then, go, okay, so we're going to refer you to the legal thing, for attorney, this attorney thing and all that. So then I call for the attorney thing, and then they go, any attorneys available at this time? Like, you may want to try back later, which would mean I'd have to explain the whole story over again, and then hope that there's an attorney available to take the case, or any part of the case, or information about other things I could do, that whole thing. And I'm like, this is atrocious. Because for me, government doesn't care that I have to re-traumatize myself and tell these stories a million times over. A million times over. Besides what you guys hear on here. A million times over to these idiots. And then even times they'll sit there and have me tell them the whole story, right? Then they'll transfer me and then make me tell the whole story again. And the other part of it that really pissed me off is the main human trafficking hotline, where I spent years giving them information. And they sat down on the phone with me for a long time and grilled me about this one situation here. And I gave them as much information I could possibly give them. And it was more than enough, because if I'm able to sit there and figure it out myself, it was more than enough. Because it was like, I was pretty sure. I was like, this one I'm pretty confident in that they can at least find out who it is, and, they'll go and look into it, right? And, versus some of the others where it's just like, oh, this guy with long hair, he might be Japanese, and, you know what I mean? Because there was one like that. But like, I was like, this thing about it, and I was like, well, yeah, the Japanese guy, though, you guys, that there's another band, that was actually related to, there's a whole long story with that one, but I didn't know they were a band at the time, which I think that may be the possibility in that one. Not good. But anyway, but like I'm saying, there's some people that if I spend enough time and do enough, looking into that, it's very possible I can identify some other people, yeah. Because there's some people that, like, they're suspected right now, but, like, you need further information, like, on stuff like that, so yeah. So I started off with that other story, and I gave him this whole thing about it, and it turned into, like, oh, you didn't get raped? Oh, okay. So, like, they didn't care. Like, it was almost like no crime was committed on me. Everything was okay. So, basically, what happens there is that they're saying is that men can attempt to human traffic you or rape you as a kid, and no one's going to get in trouble. Yeah, that's it. Like, so basically, they're promoting that conduct, right? And then they're like, we only care about the kid. So I'm just like, wait a minute. Like, the whole thing is about, like, I had this situation happen, and then it appears right now at this point in time that that situation is related to the police misconduct, as you see, because it's butting heads, like, it's side to side with the other things that were going on, and it's kind of confusing. And that's why I said, I do not believe, like, I don't know what gang that guy is from. Like, he might be a blood. If Suge Knight is a blood, then those guys probably are. I don't know what they are, because we didn't ask for IDs, and I didn't know anything about that at the time. But, like, if you're looking at that, I rule them out as being part of any further stuff, because they, like I said, there was a thing there where they were just like, blah, 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 that whole thing. And then there was no other additional situation since, right? So, I mean, I would be I think I would know if there were, right? So, the additional actions, are confusing. That's why I'm saying they're confusing, and I don't know what other third party group that is, because we know that the officers were being corrupt, and then they got a little busted in that Rampart thing, but that's not the entire story, and I don't know what they're involved in. Like, I don't know what that group is, like, such as the sheriff thing. So when I was outing the sheriffs as gang members many eons ago, I didn't know they actually had a name. Like, I gave them a name, right? But I didn't know what they were, right? So that's what we're dealing with here. And it's extraordinarily dangerous. And they have known about this forever, because when they're talking about corrupt stuff, that they just deal with this little portion and then be done with it. They don't even care. They're just like, we're moving on. We're going to let it keep going on. So then basically it's a promotion of that type of conduct. Yeah, so, and stupid government's like, why are they targeting you? It's like, I don't fucking know. You're supposed to tell me that. Why would I know? All I know is that you should care that I was a kid and they were abusing me as a kid and did not rescue me. That's kind of like number one. But I mean, as of right now, we know for sure that they know that I knew that they were being corrupt, because, like I said, they told me basically to my face. So, I mean, it's not, a thing. So we know portion one, but it doesn't explain the entire thing, because it wasn't a thing where it just only happened at that time. And so I'm like, yeah, there's a bunch of shady son of a bitches up in here, and I don't know who they are, which is quite frightening because it's like I don't know who that white guy is, and there's a yeah, whole bunch of other things going on. And when you have situations where homies are getting killed, um, in this, okay, so like what they did to me could have there a whole bunch of things could happen there. But if they're narking out to other bad, seedy, inner people, yeah, like, oh, so and so is over here now, and they just go tell them, and then somebody gets killed. Yeah, right. So it may not just be limited to just the any street level thing. That's what we're seeing. That's the thing here because, well, first of all, you have to figure out who the guy was that right before the cops came, and what his affiliation is and what his bullshit is and why he probably ratted out to the cops to commit some extortion thing, right? So yes, that right there. So I know that occurred, but I don't know what the affiliation. He's definitely not part of any Suge Knight bullshit and none of that over there. So that's why I was like, well, I don't know how to answer it because they corruptly hid the whole thing, and I tried to have that investigated. And when I went to LAPD internal, they did not want to go back there. And I'm like, well, that's the whole answer to this whole damn thing right here. Because that's when it started, and these are the people involved. Now, I couldn't say that whole other thing with the dwarf thing yet because I don't know who that was at the time. So when I'm reporting that, I didn't say, oh, Dr. Dre's dwarf. It's like, I don't know who the hell that is. And so when I'm telling them, they're like, just getting the information down of their physical features. So that's what I gave them. And then it was for them to go look into that. And I figured it probably wouldn't be that hard because, if you pull up the files, like, okay, like arrest records or something, then when they're pulling it up, they're like, such and such height in the area. Because there would be, like, they have them, under certain things. And if they have an arrest record, that dude, I was like, that dude probably does. But, he's not alive anymore anyway. But at the time, yeah, he was alive when I had given that information. And I didn't know who he was yet. And I was like, well, I hope that they can find out where that girl is. Like, that was the thing about it. But it's possible that, there was some conclusion to it, such as maybe they later got caught, taken home, or died, or but she could still be missing. And that's the thing about it. So we wanted to make sure that that is situated, but also I'm a victim in it. So then you need to tell me stuff. Like, it isn't, I don't know what they're doing here. Like, it's almost like, oh, just give us information and just be done with it. It's like, no, somebody needs to be held accountable for all this stuff. I mean, there's way worse stuff in this stuff, but I'm just like, the way that they're going about this is horrific. It's just like, we don't really care. Just give us that information. But I'm telling you, the information that they want is about gang activity. And that's not going to be for me because I'm not part of that. And I don't know what the hell those people do. Even if I was like chatting with them like every day on, somewhere and that's it. I don't know what they do. If they're doing criminal stuff or anything like that, because we're not into that thing right there. But that's the gist of what I believe that they were wanting from all that stuff is just the gang activity. Like, they didn't care about like having a child. Yeah, to be honest, yeah. Like, and if you notice the people that they keep busting, they keep letting all the celebrities go, and they were out in the open trafficking kids. Like, that was a long time ago, right? And I go, it's the same people, the same group of people, a couple of them anyway. And I'm like, is there anything to debate there? Like, they have kids all over them. So, I mean, I don't know what your problem is. So they were doing that. And then hell, even the Republican, some of them were pulling that guy out too. So I was like, yeah, that's definitely real. They had all those kids and everything else, and they wanted to sit there and say it was okay. But it was the same thing in '92. Like, they had the kids out on the street like that. Nobody cared. That's a public thing. That isn't, oh, we're trying to stop all this. No, they didn't try to stop none of that. I said, the reason why they didn't do that is because the way how they viewed children at the time. And it was really bad. Yeah, they didn't care about risk. The word rescue wasn't anywhere near LAPD's mouth. Money was, though. What happened here? This story popped up when I was even thinking about Kevin Spacey. I'm like, do we see Kevin Spacey in this area? Was he being the creepster of one of these guys? Because this was really common. So this story came up, and I was like, yep, we had like 100 guys doing this. I mean, I don't know if it'd be 100, but there was a lot, like quite a bit. It was on every other day. I'm like every other day. So it's a Boston doctor was arrested for allegedly masturbating and exposing himself on an aircraft while a teen sat next to him. Yes, so when me and the other little teen went to just walk anywhere, there would be a guy that would just whip it on out. And we're like, what the hell? And one of the weirdest ones was the car one where I was like, dude, to this day, I'm like, it's so foul. Like, and I was saying how like our reactions to it are so weird because we don't know how to deal with this because we don't even understand it. It is so strange. So I said we were driving and this guy pulls up on the side. He was like some business looking guy. And he's like, can you guys pull over for a second? I want to ask you guys a question. And we're just like, oh, okay. And so we pull over in this parking lot. It was like I don't know, it was like nighttime and it was in some business lot, something weird. And he pulls up on the side and then he's being weird. And I can't see him because he's on her side of the car, in his car. And then apparently he starts doing that. She's trying to tell me he's doing that. And I'm like, no, what? No. Like, it's like one of those things. Like, is somebody really doing some bullshit like that? It turned into this thing like that. And so he wanted to look at us kids and then do that. It was crazy. And then he takes off. And I was like, what the hell? So then another day we were driving. And then this guy was he was in a red Trans Am, Hispanic guy. There was a lot of them doing that. A lot of them doing that. And because in their country, the at that time, let me see where it is. This is not a racist thing. This actually has to do with the country thing. So, well, let me see in the past. I know stupid men keep thinking that this is about sex. No, for them, they're a bunch of rapists and they want kids. Yeah, so, and they even show this. They're like 1885. The age of consent was 10 in California. Where's Mexico? They didn't even touch on freaking down Mexico. Like, this is what I wanted to see. But anyway, yeah, it was extraordinarily low. Let's just put it that way. I don't know where it is. I want to reference it because I don't want to throw out wrong information. Generically, well, they went to 1885, and so it's like 10, 10, 10, 12-year-olds. Not applicable. They didn't even have one in Oklahoma. Oh my God, we have like some family members from back there. Oh Lordy. 10 to 12. Yeah, and then in 1890, it went up to 14, it's saying there. But that's actually not on the historical long thing. So actually some of those questionable. Why is it not applicable in Oregon in 1890? But it was 10 in Oregon in 1885. 1890 it was not applicable. Where else is it not? Oh, DC. Okay, by 1920, California went to 18. And there's a whole bunch of states that it went to 18 halfway through, and then it was like that. And then in 1999, oh my God, it went down. They went way pedo here. This is when we got raped like crazy, like this whole thing. So in 1999, they went down to 16 and 15 and all this bullshit, right? So it was taking a reversal because male supremacists do this, okay? Because they're in a war because they want to rape children. That's just the thing about it. Because women didn't come up with the thing here. They were trying, to my knowledge, they were actually trying to up it to 18 across the board. But you see, like from 1920, it was up higher, or they're showing there, and then it went boom, down. They want the kids. So we're right now in that same type of war because they want to keep raping kids, and it's extraordinarily detrimental to their health for a million reasons. And then you get these men that were coming here from different countries. It wasn't just even Mexico. They had Russia, they had Japan, China, all those places, and they were raping children at all those places. Japan was really bad. So they were coming here and they were preying on kids. So you have to understand that people are coming from different countries where that age was okay to rape kids. So they'll come here and totally screw off the laws and just do it to everybody. And then they tell kids like, it's all good. Doing that crap. So that was definitely going on right here because that there was a quite a high number of Hispanic males that were doing this on corn. It was crazy. That was going on, but it was everyone. It wasn't just one limited group, but more often than not, the ones that were like doing that whole thing, there was a lot of Hispanic men that were doing that. And then yeah, and then one in a Trans Am, and he was a Hispanic male, and he basically what he did was we were driving down the street and he was in the car, and I think he was like flirting with us from his car. This is so gross. This guy had to be like 30 something years old, and he pulls over in front of us on the side of the road, and we start to pass him, and he hurried up and opened up the car door and just did that. And I'm like, are you serious? And we totally zoomed off, of course, but I was like, yeah, they were doing it left and right, doing this stuff like it was no issue. Cops didn't care. And in fact, if I'm pretty damn sure that if it occurred in front of a cop and some guy did that, the cops would arrest us and call us like child prostitutes, like some bullshit like that. They would have blamed us for the guy doing it. That was the mindset at the time period that was going on. And I feel like, and I was even thinking about it yesterday or today, whenever I was talk about this thing, I go, yeah, the agent guy that's like acting stupid and shocked. I go, I think that guy's younger than me. I go, like, he's stupid and doesn't know like guys were doing this in like 92 and that's how the cops were being. Well, maybe they should be educated on male supremacy properly instead of sitting there using these terms of violent males. So that's because they're all violent. There's no such thing as a non-violent male supremacist. Sexual violence is violence. So, yes. And the reason why they do it, I know why they do it, is to try to separate themselves from other groups of people, such as these damn anti-Jew, son of a bitches. We had one down the street actually get arrested a couple weeks ago because he wanted to kill all the Jews. And I'm like, dude, this is insane. These people are nuts, right? But they're trying to like separate themselves from those people. And I go, you're not different. That's just a branch out of that ideology, because what is it revolving around? Because they even wrote it in the article. They're like, yeah, the Christians that, their hatred because of them not accepting Jesus, this whole other thing, and blah, blah, blah. And I go, yeah. So the ideology is coming from their bullshit, because just all of it. But their original thing is how they view women. So they see them as objects and they hate a group of people. And so then therefore you can catapult into all these million other stupid things like that. It's just stupid, like every part of it. But that thing goes there. And the guy would automatically be a rapist. He would be all these other things. And they seem to not want to accept that. And they're not different. Violence on women is not gentle violence. Like, they're just trying to do this bullshit and it's so annoying. But it reminds me of when they started going violent rape, and I'm like, well, all rape is violent, so you're saying there's gentle rape? Like, what are you going on about? Yeah, so they were doing that, and they were, these things. So this guy here, as the story goes, is every other guy. He's every other guy. He's a Boston doctor, and he decided he wanted to go on a plane and just whip it out and start going at it. Okay, next to a teen, next to a kid. And I go, yeah, they've been doing this constantly. I go, it was like every other day that this occurred, like where some guy did that in the open. And all the public of men who were just pathological liars on this thing know exactly what they did. So it's not that they're trying to act like, what? We never knew this was going on. This is ridiculous. They were doing this to all the kids or any woman walking by. They're like, hey, baby. And then, like we're supposed to be like, oh, let's hook up, like, what's going on in their head, right? There's something seriously wrong with them. Totally doing this. And the cops are everywhere, you know what I mean? And the cops are hitting on the kids, and they didn't look at, the cops actually just disregarded the age of consent completely. You could go through all these cases, even the Kristen Smart case, they disregarded the age of consent. There was that, and that was even up into 96 too. I mean, just like all that, so in 92, they disregarded the age of consent, even though it was law, because they're male supremacists. So they're extremism. It's extremism. So they just, who cares that they're kids? Yeah, basically that's what they were doing. And then they were hitting on me, and I'm a kid, so I'm telling you that they were hitting on me, and so they're pedos. So they were doing that. And then they were watching everybody getting raped, and yeah, there was people getting raped on the street all over the place. I just, like, every part of it is like, it's like this nightmare of information that, like, doesn't stop playing sometimes because I brought it back up now because I hadn't looked at it in a long time. But it's so, it was so bad then. That's why it was just shoved away, because it was just humanity. It wasn't just, oh, there's a couple people in a house and they rape somebody and nobody knows about it. No, this is the thing where everything's in the open and everybody is a psychotic and they're all part of this criminal activity. They see no wrong in it, and they continue to this day to justify those actions. And pretend government is a piece of shit. Pretend that they didn't have any clue that this is all going on right in front of them. And yeah, we could pull up cases and cases from that time period where they're sitting there sex shaming children and telling children, well, you wanted it, this stuff. And it's like, wait, we have laws that kids can't consent. So where are you getting that? And then they force child marriages. That was another thing. And they're sitting there like, save the kids. And I'm like, well, who's forcing the marriage? Christians, right? The Christians. I go, this is the craziest thing ever. And they want to blame this weird other thing because they cannot take responsibility for the monster that they created. And then the rest of them, the men, they know exactly what they did. They literally know what they did. So in turn, when you're abusing everyone, you start to create a lot of abusers, and then it crosses the genders, right? So then females will abuse, right? You get those things going on. Like, they don't seem to understand the concept. It wasn't women that came up with this. But if you start raping and abusing a woman, she could turn out very bad. And we have that in some of our stuff too. So I'm trying not to disregard those things because we know they exist, right? Pure evil. But it wasn't their ideology. Like, they didn't come up with it. It was men that came up with this bullshit, and then, we're gonna put it into little girls and little boys, and they're gonna come out and they're gonna do all these bad things, right? And I go, and you could tell it's from the Bible because of the derogatory terms that are being used in a lot of this stuff, and the law itself, right? Because if you go and reference, you can reference all these laws from the Bible to there, right? So my study as a kid was the Bible, right? So I had to go through a long historical, that whole thing with it. And then we tried to forget it purposely. But, yeah, so I can kind of reference back. So, there was a time where it's just like, I used to be like, yeah, they're not really being good Christians. And then it's like, no, they're actually following it properly. I was like, they are. They actually are. So, and that was the brainwashing it, I do believe. Like, when you're learning it, like, they purposely try to keep out not to focus on all the bad, like, at least at my church. Like, they didn't focus on all the really bad stuff that was in it. And so it was like, we're going to focus on this other good stuff. We're not going to push, like, you have to get married as a kid. Like, none of that. Thankfully, that portion was not part of our thing. but it's there. They were raping kids in the Bible and all sorts of things like that, and the wording in it, mostly as a kid reading it, like, I don't know, went over your head, or you think it's normal. I don't know, but yeah, as I started looking through it later, very bad. I'm like, it's very bad. So I was like, yeah, actually, they're living by it perfectly, because if you were to live in that time period, it was horrific. You wouldn't want to relive that today, because that's at a very not very educated time in the universe, and there was a lot of abuses, and like they didn't have an age of consent, so they were raping all away everything, and they didn't have mental health things then. And you know what I mean, you're going through this whole thing about it. So then they taught to be authoritative and do authoritative parenting, and that caused a lot of ASPD, and also things like schizophrenia, things like, oh my god, a whole list of mental illnesses. And as they were bringing up a lot of the mental illness stuff again, I started looking at more stuff, and even beyond, child abuse stuff, but I started seeing the things of the mental health issues that white slaves, the slavery thing had caused people of color, and there was like a long list of mental health things, and I'm just like, oh my god, like it's just something like, if you're not thinking about any of this stuff, like, I mean, it's kind of like a duh thing that it would cause all these things, but it was like just putting it in perspective, how much abuse has been going on. And then, then the Indian thing came up, right? Like I was saying, all these stories were coming up, and it's kind of like you have all the answers. It's just like all of a sudden it just kind of comes together one day. Like it's just like one day, like, all the answers to this whole problem here. And it was just like, I kept saying, I go, there's something wrong with your men. There's something wrong with these boys. There's something wrong with them. Like, right? And you're just like, what, what are these different things that are wrong with them? And then, but that came up, right? So I was like, yeah, so the churches was doing that, right? So they were doing that. They didn't have an age of consent then. So raping kids was like totally fine. Because look, as we're looking at the thing here in 1885, basically in some of these areas, it was like age 10, right? And did I just take out the other one again? Sure as hell did. Yeah, Canada's roughly the same. It was in 1880, it was like age 12, right? So when you go back, they were raping all the kids in this time period anyway. So just imagine how they're being right now, right? So let's say your state has age 18 like ours does, how they were coming at us as children going, oh, old enough, going down a couple years, right? And so at age 10, like a lot of kids are not even having their period yet. Like there's a lot of things to this that's really disgusting. So yeah, they were being straight up pedophiles. Now, who created all that? Christians. The Christians came up with the laws, right? Who was in the majority here? So that's what I was looking at. I go, well, who's going to be making the laws up here and doing all this stuff? Because if you're in a country where it's 90% Christians, then they made the laws up. And so who had power, though? That women didn't have voting power then. It was 1920, correct? But so they didn't come up with that. So I was like, yeah, the men. So the men. So we were zooming in on that. And I go, yeah, the men did that. And so then they were raping little girls, and they were grooming them. And then when they groomed them, then they groom them into their ideology, right? So then they start targeting other women. Then they may abuse, they start abusing because they're being abused here, right? Then they looked at little boys as not being able to get raped anyway. So they're not really, much of a thought here. But yeah, and it's pretty horrific. So you start seeing this whole bigger picture of like mass abuse, not just, oh, there's some people that had some abusive parents. You're seeing a widespread thing of abuse, and why so many came out like a bunch of sociopaths, right? And that's just in addition to like a million other things that they may have. Like they would go on these lists of things that they got. But apparently schizophrenia was one of the ones that can be caused from sexual and physical violence in the home. And I go, wow, I don't know why. It was like kind of eye opening of like, what is going on here? Because I met quite a few that had that. And as they're talking, they start saying, yeah, my father did this, blah, 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 right? So they start going in this thing, and I go, and then when they're talking about it even more, like some of these places are escapisms or whatever the thing is, but they don't control, like, the episodes that they're having, going into these weird things. Because I just read one the other night where the guy was like thinking the CIA told him to pop out his eyeballs. I'm like, holy crap. But that's learned, right? Like, it's something that they heard in society somewhere about the CIA. They were probably hanging out on a Republican website. Like, they keep coming up with that stuff. I mean, nobody was born thinking the CIA is coming after them, right? Like, that they read something somewhere, and then for some reason, like, I don't know if it's a thing where they get voices or something like that, and then it just goes together and it starts freaking them out, maybe, and then they start. I don't know. They can't tell the difference from reality and that, right? Um, it's kind of crazy to think that could cause that, but apparently it does. And so I was saying, I go, yeah, these socios are like kind of the causation to a long slew of mental health issues, which would include the slavery one, right? Where they were beating up the slaves, they did all those things, and that type of abuse goes on and on and on and on and on, right? And they were Christians doing it. That was a thing. So I go, yeah, the pinpoint, you know exactly where the ideology came from and how it could stem out into a thing like that, and how it catapults from having female sex slaves to enslaving people of color, into going after the Jews, to going, all these different things. And then you'll see some op things going on where, like, if it's somebody who may be Jewish, sitting there abusing women, like, that's the root thing of it, so they're, they may start warring with other groups of people, whatever the case may be. But here in this country, the Jews do not control everything, which that's the crazy thing to it, is that they tell this group of these male supremacists, these white male supremacist Nazis, tell themselves this, and then they want to go take them all out. The whole thing is about power and control and everything else. And if they even feel like anybody's crawling up into their power and control, they want to take them out. So like I said years ago, I don't even understand the bullshit with even that portion there. And do I want to? I know it's bad, but it's like, do I even want to have my brain cells like die just trying to understand like why some idiot would even think like that? Because there's nothing that is reasonable about it, just generally. And they all have their different points of view as to why they would think like that anyway, and none of it is sane. And and then it just revolves around this bullshit, right? So yeah, so I was talking about that. And even in their community, in the Jewish community, they have problems with the sexual abuses as well. The same thing, because it has to do with how they view all of this, just generally. Like, nobody's immune to it. Like, it's not a thing where it's like only the Christians. Like, I keep saying that, but the reason why they're so dominant, in the conversation, is because in America, they are the majority. And so if you control everything, then you can't get out of the responsibility and the accountability of the things that you put into law and what you created, and any hell that comes out of it is your fault. So you get the blame for it. Yeah, I mean, that's just it. There's nobody else to blame, right? Because we're looking at that, because I'm like, is there any other external things here? No. So who made all these laws for 10? Because even before that, there was none. They didn't care. So raping kids was no big deal. Like, that's the mindset. And it wasn't that long ago. That's another thing that people just don't sit with. They want to run online and call everybody pedos, right? And but that's fine and dandy, because it's probably true. But I'm saying that they don't they can't pull any of this out. Like I'm saying, okay, do you know the age of consent things though? Because your state right there has very young. So you might want to like go work on that. And no, they don't. Because at that point, then they're like, it's totally cool. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. So if you have a problem with adults going after kids, then maybe you want to fix your own state right there. My state needs a major help. We have that law, but yet they actually ignore we even have an age of consent here. Like they just let it happen. And so, there's a lot of different battles going on with that. But they don't want to take the responsibility that they're the ones that are the pedos. Like I keep saying, I go, the Christian church made those laws. I mean, that's a thing. So if you have a problem with that, then you need to deal with that inside your own community there and fix your state. So your states are the ones that mostly have them very young. So yeah, I mean, there'd be a problem there, right? States also promote beating children and being very authoritative. And the problem is with that, because none of y'all went to therapy. I was like, none of y'all went to therapy. That's actually really bad, right? It's almost like they don't tell the public this. Like I don't understand, but it's like that parenting right there is child abuse. And so it's in all those things. I keep reading this tag and I'm like, well, yeah, that would be all of them, and that's why all of them are messed up, you know what I mean? And so they're just basically being their own monster and creating their own monsters. But in their mind, they think they're being like perfect parents. Like this thing about it. That's why I say don't even bother asking these like serial killer parents, like, how good of a parent were you? Because they all think like they did the right thing. Or like, I beat his ass, when like they say something like that. And it's like, gee, no wonder he's out slaughtering like women, like something like that. But that's what I was saying. I go, yeah, that. And then, but such as this other case here, it's like the guy most likely was okay to do that kind of conduct the whole time. They never get in trouble. Like I could have told on him all day. The cops would have been like, did they touch you? Well, what do you want us to do? Like that's exactly it. And then the guy would keep doing this. Then he goes on a plane and does it. And then I go report doctors for doing bad conduct and they still don't do anything, right? It's a promotion of it. It's a promotion of it, and then I'm the one that gets targeted over it, right? So that was my main thing. But I got in trouble. Oh my god, if I got totally suspended, I was like, for trying to explain this, like they're like, we're coming after you for hate speech, and I'm like sitting here actually explaining the thing here, but they don't like me talking bad about the Christians, you know what I mean? But that's it. They have to take all the responsibility for it because they were the ones that started the country, right? They're the main majority, right? So you have no one to blame. It's nothing else. It's nothing else. So, and you can look at the historical thing on it. I mean, it's crazy to see that Oklahoma had no age of consent at all at a point. None. You go rate the little babies, you know what I mean? Really, that's what was going on. And so when you start doing that, it creates this really bad cycle of monster, like a bunch of Josh Duggars, right? Like I said, that documentary was really good because it explained a much larger scale of that abuse too, because that was pretty common. Like they were pretty everyday common people, the way how they were thinking on a lot of that stuff. Um, and they broke down the general breakdown of what male supremacy is, which was funny because they're like explaining the church head, but it's actually the breakdown of that ideology, that extremist thing. And so I was like, yeah. I go, you'll notice it's all the same. And then you go pull up the thing on antisocial behavior, and then you put it up next to that, and you'll see, oh, it's all the same. Yeah, and that was the thing about it. And I go, oh, wow, okay. Because I had all these like different categories. It's like, here's these Christian right here, and then here's this male supremacist thing right here. And then here's ASPD here because I'm dealing with serial killers. And it kept going, yeah, it's the same. It's the same. It's the same. Like all three things, it's just like boom. And yeah. And it would be because like we're pointing out the abuses, right? That something's abusive. That's why that happened. So I was like, wow, okay, that's quite interesting. I wasn't expecting it like that. It's such a weird thing to explain because I don't know if people are understanding that. Yeah, and so then they will create serial killers. When here you could create a serial killer by teaching somebody that a group of people should be annihilated. So they constantly went after women for, being a sex worker, whatever the bullshit is, right? And then let's say at home, well, they could be physically abused, but not necessarily. Like I've noticed in some of these things, even with my brother being as he wasn't physically abused. How he was treated was actually more of a neglectful thing and then a cuddling. So it's more like, we're going to teach you that it's totally okay to throw your sister down the stairs and she must have caused it. So, you're a good boy. You're a good boy. That thing, that could cause a serial killer. And then also maybe, well, if the mom starts beating him up or something like that and he starts having a hatred towards women, that could be another thing. But and you don't see too many female ones. There's a reason for that also. But anyway, yeah, they exist somewhere. Um, then, um, yeah, because males are taught to be violent, and they're actually taught that being a sojo is the equation of being a man, which is crazy. I'm like, you should not want to look anywhere near like that definition. Nowhere near, nowhere near. So that's going on. Yeah, because they were this actually started way back when they were trying to dig at the reason why we have mass shooters, and I was like, well, okay, now you have a problem with these guys, so they have a problem, and they started kind of originally trying to go, oh, they were bullied. I'm like, no, that we were all bullied. The last thing I was thinking of is shooting up the school. I thought about flipping them all off, and I did. I was like, but beyond that, like, I don't want to kill a bunch of people, so that's a homicidal thing. There's a whole other thing to that. So I was like, yeah, the thing about it, and why wouldn't there be a bunch of women doing it? Women are the most bullied of all, right? So why wouldn't you would think, like, logically, like, oh, men have been raping and beating women up the whole time. Like, why didn't they turn out to be these monstrous, like, killers, all over the place? Is the mass majority, you would think, right? Which means, like, they were missing some type of input to not do that, right? Because the men were taught something completely different. There was a lot to that. So, but you do see some female killers. Some of these cases, man, they're just whoa. But they deal with the same stuff: neglect, abuse, um, cuddling, a whole bunch of different things. Right? You'll see those things. Yeah. And but you don't want to see like an uptick in that. Because if we start seeing an uptick in that, you should be scared to death. You don't want to have like this thing where they're all both like shooting up the place and everybody's gone. You know what I mean? Like it should be going backwards, like where people are healing and you less and less and less and less and less of that stuff. But they won't tackle it because they don't want to let go of that Bible shit. They don't want to like touch the thing that's causing that. They don't want to look at it that they're causing that. And that's what I'm trying to tackle, because it wouldn't have been a problem if, somebody's like, yeah, this wonderful God and being spiritual and blah, blah, blah. It wouldn't have any of this going on. It's the ideology that's going on inside it and teaching people that they're different from each other and that some groups of people are bad and you need to go target them and you need to treat a gender totally differently. So then they start targeting LGBTQ and all that stuff like that. It's a total stem off of that, all of it. So it's origination, the root of it is women. I keep saying it. I go, there's no thing around that, which is bothersome. They need to tackle it. Otherwise, they're just going to be doing this whole problem this whole time. This is going to keep going on. They're going to complain about everybody being pedo. They're going to do all this stuff, like this whole thing about it. And I mean, I'm talking about them all being these predators. They're these monsters because of that whole thing. And it was literally broken down in the Duggar thing. I was like, yeah, but they created a monster. Exactly. And just how they did it. And that's everybody else, though. That applies to everybody else. I was just like, yeah, that was great, actually, the way they explained that. Yeah, because they start targeting us and then they don't do anything to them. You could create a serial killer by doing that crap. And he's a serial child predator because of that crap. Luckily the homicidal part didn't come into play. But yeah, that was fantastic. I'm like, it just was because I was like, yeah, I mean, I've been trying to explain all this for a long time, but it's just kind of like, yeah, exactly like that. Yeah. And that's actually part of this, and it's part of that, and it's part of this other thing. The thing that was so annoying about even that is that there's people out trying to defend it, saying, oh, they're not all, the whole church thing is not all like that. It's just these crazy group of people. That's not correct. That's actually not correct. They were actually the majority of the public. I had so much problems with the public, mostly when I was still in church, like way back in the day, where it was such a gaslight where you felt like you're the only one part of church and everybody else is a bunch of heathen. You know what I mean? Like you had this like feeling about it, but it was actually all of them. And then it's like you're fighting this thing, but it's just them. It's the ideology, and they were the majority. So actually, everybody I'm dealing with is a bunch of Christians, So it's that thing, and they just made excuses, like, oh, they're just sinners, Like they keep doing this thing, and it's like, no, no. I was like, the old freaking pastor thought he can go and prey on me and other girls, and like he was shopping for like a stripper, like that type of thing. And I'm like, that's disgusting. And then the police totally okay him to break into my home, and then them raping this other girl. Like there was a whole thing to this, and they just okayed it. Arrested? No. So I went to go pull up the files on it, and then they go, oh, we got rid of him. I was like, yeah, ha ha. You could not okay that conduct being a sane and sound person, period. To okay criminal conduct like that means you have antisocial behavior. Raping and breaking into people's homes and okaying violent conduct on other people when your job is supposed to come and arrest them. Like that's an arrestable thing. It isn't even a debatable thing. You have a problem. You have a problem. You have a problem sitting there disregarding those things happening. And now I see a new problem. Like it's the same problem, but I'm seeing certain people use the excuse of cancel culture. They first of all, they made up this term, but using cancel culture as a way to cover up for them being a sociopath. Like they're like, I'm not going to be involved in this culture here while I disregard person is a said danger to others. That's just another way to excuse their personality disorder right there, just to say something like that. Because if you want to go by facts, like actual facts, then you would go by the mass majority of people that are literally saying this person did a million things to me, regardless of what a damn court said. So why would you endanger a bunch of other people to bring that person in there? So no, they're just trying to justify their own problem. But that's another thing. But you have to kind of go through all that. And it's kind of the same thing with the Woody Allen thing and that other stuff back in the day when it's like people knew the dude did all this stuff and they try to justify it by, whatever bullshit excuse that they have at the time. I was abused and so, like, I just disregarded it. It's like, I don't know how you disregard the fact that the guy, like, literally touched some kid, and he's hanging out with a bunch of other pedophiles, too, so it's not even that. But it's like, no, it's a showing of your own problems and your own thing there, and there's just no justification for it. I mean, no healthy justification for it. And those are people I wouldn't want to be around because they will help cover up those crimes, just like the Catholic Church. You could tell the people that will do that. You could literally tell right away the people that would do that. I would never, everybody knows I probably would never do that. So I talk on all these things. So there wouldn't be a thing where I'm like, I'm gonna hide, this person. And then another thing with Nicki Minaj doing that bullshit. The guy is actually like a classic. So, according to, I'm going to say according to the information that the other victim gave, and she probably doesn't even know that, but she was just given this information of his background and this thing, and I go, oh, classic, like his thing about it. And so, I mean, he could have a million other things along with it, but I was like, oh, okay, so he's totally BS and Nicki Minaj, and she's like up there taking his bullshit, and she then, because she was describing them as street, but I was like, because, okay, if you're from the street, I'm like I'm the expert of this, but no, she's gonna want to defend her man, right? And go out and want to like take everybody out, do this bullshit, right? But she's looking like a chump, right? Because the guy, I was like imagining this. I was like, the guy like he's a rapist, right? So I was like, yeah, when they met, I was like, can you imagine like the guy's like, I used to be a rapist. Do you want to date? You know what they do for the most part? These types, these classic socios, what they do is go, she lied. She did this whole thing, and way back in the day, and I got busted for, doing that bullshit. Like, just I'm gonna bullshit you, bullshit crap, and so then they start manipulating the relationship, like whatever it is to get them to be all into them and whatever bullshit. So she fall for it. And then he gets her to target the victim. I was like, dude, you could not get some freaking idiot to get me to do that crap. Like, that's not. Well, first of all, I would never be with that guy. But second, to do that crap. So she's like the chump in it. Because who's like the focus in the situation, right? Her. Like, she looked totally terrible. And the story's not even about her. Like, that's the crazy thing. It's not something that, like, happened to her, and and she's whatever. No, she's standing up going, I'm gonna take care of this, and I'm gonna look like a bad person because you are being a bad person right there. And for this guy who's a straight up soldier, I mean, he's a classic, he's another classic. I like pulling out the classic because he's like the typical guy, basically classic dude like that, where it's like, I'm a dropout, I didn't even go to school, fucking running out doing, the typical shit like that, manipulating, I didn't do this really, you know what I mean? This bullshit. And she's this like multi-million, like you're just looking at this. I'm like, her self-esteem or something, but she's getting taken. So that's my opinion on it. And, yeah, mostly if that background, if that victim was actually talking about the background correctly. Yeah. Yeah, and it kind of explains some of that other stuff about it. But I was like, but who's getting dragged through the mud? Nikki. Like, it just looks. I'm like, I would not have no man come up in here. She was totally fine before that piece of shit guy came up in there. But she obviously has no friends because they're enabling it. I have seen. And nobody should be enabling anybody to bully anybody. That's kind of number one. But enabling them to be take about this dude. Like, to think about it, because the guy's like, I don't want to have this, thing on my record, and then Nikki's like, it makes me look bad, just the whole thing about it. But it's just another example of a piece of shit man that has a fucking problem like that, and the background and why that would occur. And then they grow up and do this crap. Like, I'm watching it right now, I'm like, damn, that right there, and she don't see it. And she may have those problems too. I don't know. Like, I don't know her, so yeah, so the doctor gets on a plane. Teen sitting next to him observed that his leg was bouncing up and down shortly after, and then observed that the blanket was on the floor, and then he was allegedly doing that. And then after realizing what was going on, she moved herself to an empty seat in a different row. Then the teen told her family, and then... Do they have videos on planes? Like... That was a crazy thing, man. Back in the 80s, my parents used to just throw me on a plane by myself. I was like, it sounds like something like that, where like they put the kid on the plane and she was alone, and then she had to sit by this guy, and then yeah, and then when she arrived, then told the family. Yeah, that was I man, and that was the last time I ever flown. Was like as a kid. So they used to go back and forth from San Diego, and then they would send me out alone. And it's not like anything bad happened on the plane. That's the thing about it. But you can't get me on there anymore. But it's like kind of scary though, because I think it's crazy that they would send me a little tiny kid. Like I was like, how old was I there? 8, 9, in that age range thing going on like that. Throw me on a plane by myself across California. It's like, yeah, somebody could have totally nabbed me, but or I could have got this guy next to me. That's it. Older men see, oh, look, no adult is around. This is a great time to do this. She's not, this doctor. This is men about it. Watch, this is other men about it. Oh, I could totally overlook this, but he's a great doctor, so it's ridiculous for you to try to fire him. Like, it'll be a thing like that. That's what they defend. And they have a mental problem. So, yeah, that's what's been going on the whole time. These men have been doing this to me the whole time. A tank, like a long list that would probably go out my front door. And these men continually make these excuses, and so then therefore they all do it, and then they don't have a problem with it. Because if you had a problem with it, you wouldn't disregard it. You wouldn't disregard it at all. So they're telling you what they're okay with. So they're okay with they touching some kids. That's it. Like that's the thing. Like they tell you who they are. You just have to think about like their rationale here because nobody on earth is going to sit there and be able to tell me a story like this, right? Let's say it's got work for me. Somebody does this crap and I go, I'm not going to be with cancel culture, like using that as an excuse because that's her bullshit. And fire him. I'm gonna actually risk the public safety and keep this guy here. So like if he touches anybody at my hospital, um, you know. Yeah, that's the thing. And they've been doing that. Same thing on set. Like if you know a guy's been having problems even on set and touching people, whatever, even on set, because Mr. Kevin over there has been doing stuff like that. And then you're like, I'm just going to disregard it and do it. I hope to God, if he does that, you don't want him to do it again, but if he does it again, that they slam down a huge freaking thing on that person and they make him learn a lesson, like a really bad lesson, because you're just promoting that thing. They're playing with fire. I mean, who the hell does that? But these people don't care. And as other people said, with the other allegations on so and so, that's regarded to the other story, bringing their kids around to those people anyway. Yeah, it's pretty reckless. I mean, it's like, I'll just take a chance. It's like, yeah, no. I mean, why would you do that? It's stupidity. It's like, I don't think anything's bad with doing this. I'm going to take tablespoons of cinnamon and then you die. It's kind of like that thing there. It's like at a point here, when you have that many, I mean, you only need one allegation. It should only be one allegation. One single one. Nobody needs to have a million allegations. It shouldn't come to that point. But if you have a million allegations at that point, it's kind of like screaming at you. We have a problem, sir. The world is not lying about being touched. The world's been touched by Jesus in a very bad way and they got molested. So that is what's been going on. That's why this is occurring. Like he feels very comfortable. Think of the mindset of this. It's just like, why not? Men know that mindset because they've been open to do any of this crap. And it was me as a kid that they were trying to justify, Paul doing that bullshit in a theater. And I'm like, well, that's kind of a little grooming there because so then if he does it in front of me, then, I should be okay with it because it's just that, why not? The justification for it was not good, really, because if I'm a guy, if I'm a guy and I want to go to that theater too, and then that fool's doing that next to me, I'd be kind of pissed, you know what I mean? So, yeah, those were the things about it. But they want to do that next to each other. I mean, I wouldn't go to a public theater to do that anyway, but, whatever his damn problem is. But that wasn't the only problem of his. I just think, and it was other men trying to justify it to me. You should be okay with us doing that. That's basically what they're doing. It's gross. To a kid, to me. You should be okay with Paul, like, totally doing that in a theater. You know what I mean? And then that other guy, that other actor dude that was doing that, you should just be okay with him doing that. Yeah, that's great. So when I was out here, when that stuff was going on, all the men were doing that in front of me. That's what I'm saying. I go there. They were trying to groom me into being okay with men doing that at any which way, anywhere, in cars and whatever. Walking down the street. Yeah, walking down the street was the big one when they did that stuff. This thing right here. Just walking. It's so gross, dude. We're like little kids, and just some guys like, I'm really comfortable. I'm just gonna do that. Their head. Their head. All of them. And it's all of them because you cannot have this going on in society without a mass majority being okay with it. No, that guy would have got arrested like right away, all these people, because then there'd be other adults seeing it, right? It's not like we were alone and there's nobody else out. No, it's other adults, they see it, they're looking, and they probably sit there and blame us for just being us, you know what I mean? That's what they were doing. And that's very biblical. Like they taught that through, like the church. Like we're tempting the guy. They're so weak, they can't stop doing this stuff. They can stop doing this stuff. They just think they have the right to do it. That's the mindset of it. Yeah, and another time this happened to me actually was it wasn't a I was like a hospital. It was a convalescent home. And I was like, God, maybe 6. It was when I was in the brownies. I was like really little, and we had to perform dancing for all these older people, and different events and stuff like that. And I remember they had us. I don't know if this is a thing where we were dancing. Because I had another friend there with me. I was trying to think of how this went, but maybe we were dancing. Yeah, we did some event there, and then this old man was like walking down the hall, and he started doing that, like walking down the hall. Now maybe he had dementia, but regardless, like, and they try to make an excuse for it, like he's just out of his mind, kind of like he was like President Bush, when he was like grabbing all the kids, like doing this whole like thing. So we didn't really understand it. So even younger there, they were doing this, at the time where you didn't even know what the hell, or that thing. And so yeah, I'm making excuses for it. And then nobody gets busted, and then they just like dragged him off somewhere else, and he couldn't stop doing it. It was crazy. I remember that, but I was like, what in the hell? I couldn't tell you what the word was back then, what he was doing. It's just like, I remember one of the girls saying, yo, he was doing this. Like, they knew a little bit more than me on that thing, but I'm trying to think of any other situations like that where that happened. A lot, though. Mainly when we came out here. That was like, it was like an all day long fest of dudes doing that. It's everybody. Like, it's not a thing. It was like this one time, this one guy, and then it didn't happen really again. No, it was like all of them. And then the other story that came up was the acting school. Oh my God. I was like, that was one of those stories where it's like, somebody tells you to jump off a bridge, would you do it? So like the school was like telling this, I guess it was an acting school. I don't have the story up right now, but I'll just summarize it really quick. They went to some acting school thing, and then they had a rape mask. So then they told the guys in the class to put on a rape mask, and then they can run around and grope the girls. And I was like, excuse me? I was like, there should be like a major lawsuit on the school. But anyway, the guys were like more than happy to go be rapists and go grope the girls. I was like, so if a school told you to go ahead and go rape the girls, you do it? Yeah, well, here they did. They were more than happy to be rapists. So I was like, yeah, that's a good example that they're all rapists, because you couldn't get me to, I mean, it would have to be a thing, like in order for me to be involved in something like that, where everybody's consenting, like consent, like actual consenting, and we're all back and forth. But even still, I wouldn't take part of it because I don't want to be groped. You know what I mean? So, rape, basically, because that's what that is. And so then later they said that they made him pretend that the girls were undressing and pick which one they wanted to be with. I was like, dude, that school should be sued to freaking the ground. I can't imagine this. But they're like, what was the purpose of teaching that? I go, they're just teaching male supremacy and human trafficking, actually, but and being rapists. That and yeah, and then the teachers were going after the kid. I go, yes, it's a rape fest. Like all these men, and they keep pretending like they're not rapists. That's how I go. They are. Give them a rape mask, and then go, would you do it? And they're off raping everybody. Yeah. So that was the good example of that was a real. I guess it was a real like acting school, something like that. I was like, oh hell no, no. That's not acting. That's not acting, groping, like actually raping people. I was like, what? Yeah, being rapist is just the, yeah, because you need to do that for movies. No. Like I said, when I was in comedy school, they were weirded out with my comedy. Like the I'm always getting in trouble just even being serious, but the thing was is I was talking about that clown story, and you know, like that's how people talk about serious topics. It was just dark comedy, dark, very dark comedy. And I get a lot of comments here saying like, why is my stories making them laugh, you know? And it's like, I don't know, it's just the delivery maybe of like Dr. Dre's Dwarf. Like it's not made up, like it's a real thing. But yeah, like that thing right there. So I was talking about the clown story where my dad hired a clown for us when we were little, and he reminded us of Robin Williams, and his name's very similar. Anyway, uh, you know, Robert, that whole thing, right? So then, yeah, and then right when I turn of age, the guy's like, I have always liked you, and my dad hires him, and they're laughing about it. I'm like, that's damn scary, you know what I mean? Because like I'm a kid. Why is a clown liking a kid? You know, this whole thing about it, and it's creepy, right? So I thought it was kind of creepy, but then in a way, it has this twist of humor. Like it really isn't funny at all. But I pulled it up in a one of the what were we doing? Some sort of improv in our class, and my teacher just stops. He's like, "Is that real? That's actually messed up." Like something weird like that. I was like, "Oh, you know." But yeah, so it didn't. I don't know. It didn't deliver well. Maybe I don't know. But yeah, that was one of the ones. I just remember it because it was odd that it turns serious. Like I'm trying to make light of it, you know, and then he stops it and turns it to a serious thing. But yeah, no, that actually really happened. In fact, I mean, I don't know if he'd remember it if anybody talked to that guy, but probably because it's all messed up, kind of. It was kind of like that Conan O'Brien thing when he was talking to, was it Shannon? I forget who it was, talking about, uh, uh, what's his name? Gary Coldman, because he came up actually in our work story as well, and him being a damn predator, right? And they, like, she's telling the story, and it's, you know, it's a serious story, but it's totally effed up because he's like a total predator. And then Conan's like, what? You know, like, almost like you're breaking like what you're trying to do, like explain the story. It was totally that thing right there. And yeah, apparently Gary Coleman came into that human trafficking job there, and like I said, when that occurred, I was not present, so I didn't even have any like juicy story on that thing. But no, they mentioned that he did, and there was actually, shoot, there was like a whole bunch of other freaking people that did too. And I mentioned the one. just because of that other bullshit. But it's a public place, you guys. If TMZ was there, they would report that stuff like no other. So it's not a private facility. Nobody has to keep anything anonymous. None of that. It's a public place. It's like going into friggin' Hooters or something like that. But they had gone in, I guess, at some point in I believe the city of industry one over by the gang sheriffs or something, because that's where I recall the story being. And the only thing I could find in addition to it was him running around with a bunch of strippers. Now that's not a strip club, but there is a strip club nearby. So maybe his thing was back then was just going over there, and then maybe he went to the strip club, right? Like maybe some bullshit like that. But if he was acting like that with her in that situation, he then that meant that he was acting the same way probably with the girls at our job, because that's what we were dealing with. Actually, when she was explaining the story, I go, yeah, that was every guy that came in trying to be like that. So for him, that would have been a normal thing. And in fact, the girls probably wouldn't even complain about it because all the guys were being that predator, right? That whole thing. So yeah, when I was hearing it, I was like, yeah, probably. I mean, and then they think because the guys are small, like he's another dwarf guy, right? So I was like, those guys, man, they, just because they look like that, they're not safe. That's not all of them. So regardless of any of that, because I know at the time, like maybe my perception then was like, oh, they're harmless, like the same thing, right? And then all of a sudden they're this massive predator. And yeah, that was a thing. And then me trying to explain it. And then it's just like, I can't beat him up. It'd be like child abuse because the guy's like half my size, but he also had a gun, which I didn't. And, like that type of thing. But, yeah, I was like on any other day, maybe I could throw him, but, and her too. But, but they're still dangerous. It doesn't matter if I'm like half as, half taller than them. They still were the actual perpetrator in, these things. So, yeah, that just was the thing. And then you go back into his older pictures and he's all over, um, Dana, isn't it Dana? He's like all over her, and and I was like, they probably totally cuddled that crap and thought, oh, we're just gonna say how cute, because he's a small guy, enabling it, right? And so I was like, yeah, this other dude, the other dude that I was talking about, I was like, maybe there's a lot of that too, because it's kind of like, well, beyond that, he had a bad childhood. That dude, I was reading like a lot of this stuff about him. I was like, yeah, that dude, you know, that made worse than dairy stuff. But yeah, like just in the thing of people not taking other things seriously because of their size, right? And so men kind of, if you actually kind of think about it, like a lot of men like to target people my height, and I'm a serial killer favorite. When you look at their, what they go after, height wise and look wise and all sorts of things, that they feel powerful over them, like they're not threatened by them, and I'm not like if I see Gary Coleman, I don't feel like threatened by him up until he probably started trying to get up on my leg or something. But I'm just saying, like, you have this automatic like thing about it. So just some other psychology to that, because she probably thought the same thing, like, oh, and then all of a sudden it becomes this other thing. And then people are laughing, but the only way you can really share that story anyway, mostly if you're a comedian, is just just tell the story as it is, like the truth in it, right? And there's a level of humor to it where it makes it more easy to take in anyway. It doesn't become this like dead serious thing where it's like, oh my god, we need to stop and this is totally messed up, like this thing. But you're just telling the story and they're getting the story across, and you could take it in. But the unfortunate thing is, when she originally said the story, people thought it was a joke, just a straight joke. And it was actually something that really happened, because I had to go back into the history of it. And there was another thing when she did originally say it before. And I was like, yeah, people just didn't take it seriously. Just like these guys, they didn't take it seriously. There was a lot of things that nobody took seriously back in the day, but people use comedy to get that information out, right? So I was kind of learning to do, I was doing that, but then I went to therapy and then I got questioned for doing that, like that type of thing um, because it's kind of in a way like you could minimize the situation by doing that. I'm not minimizing the situation here. Like, it's just me telling it as it is. And if it comes off sounding a certain way, that's just my personality. Like, I'm not even trying. It's that thing. But there's some things in life that's just so absurd that it just, I don't know why. Like the dwarf, that thing, like I said, like when it was happening, is like, it's just, it was funny as hell to me at the beginning because, like I said, I see this like freak show coming down the street, and it's just kind of lighthearted, funny, like what these two, this dude, like the looking like this, and it could have ended up totally cool if the guy wasn't having this thing going on and a kid and all this bullshit. Think of something like that, and then to be scared, to have this thing, it turned into a whole different. No, that was not. There was nothing funny about it anymore. Um, but telling the story, like, yeah, that's why I said, I go, when I was telling the agent and all that stuff, I was like, I have a feeling like they're not gonna believe that story because it's quite not an everyday story, and it's real as hell. You know, that's why I said, I go, when I gave the info, that was the whole reason. I go, yeah, I feel confident like they could find that guy because I mean, how many of them are there out here? Even if there was two or three, that was the only one I've ever seen in my entire life. Ever. I've seen dwarves. I had one come into my work in my other place too, and I go, who's that? Somebody else, this other dude. But yeah, no, I've seen a few of them, but how many are running the street? You know what I mean? Like doing this thing. Like, it's not a very common thing to see, but maybe if I was in a certain other area, maybe I would see a couple more. But in general, that was the only one I've ever seen in my entire life since that time. The only one. So they're not a common occurrence to see in that situation, just like that, and in that area. So, like I said, I go, I would think that would be a very easy one for them to pinpoint, like out of all the people we're going on about, right?